Okay, so if you'd like the backstory of this dream and the blonde man, go ahead and click on the link below. Here is the re-edited version of the audio that I originally made for the worldwide earthquake dream. The audio seemed to be still intact. There's a lot of stuff that I had to edit out. I just don't like leaving it stuttering. But nonetheless, this is the original audio. I edited it, try to smooth it out too so it doesn't blow your speakers. I appreciate you listening. Thanks for watching. Oh yeah, one last thing. There is a DARPA dog program in Alaska for whatever reason. I did find that out in late December 2018, maybe early January 2019.
There was a sense of urgency as we made our way towards the road. I remember looking back while watching him move forward. I remained ahead of him. I don't know if I was guiding him towards the end of the driveway. I don't know if I was unobserved. Before we make it to the road, I looked away to my right. I observed a machine within a glare of light. The image I observed was momentary. I seen a dog-like machine. This robot had a glass half-oval dome covering the entire upper portion of its body, above the legs. The dome looked alien and very aerodynamic. As I looked back towards the blond man, I observed him partially below the ground. A giant crack had opened up along the side of the road, where the man vibrated, almost sifting into the soil. He had already made his way down the road a small distance before being consumed by the earth. This robot came out of nowhere from my right shortly after, as the blond man was to my left. The blond man was still on the same side as the prop when I observed what had happened to him. He eventually settled into the moving dirt and was backfilled up to his neck. Some large object tumbled, covering his head. It was a cinder or concrete block. In a timeless shift, I was standing over him. I cannot remember if the earth stopped moving. The situation seemed more frenzied. Some soil and the heavy block that was covering the man's head was removed. I cannot explain how the debris was removed. Anxiety hit. At this point, I was horrified in finding he was still alive. The blond man seemed okay. I was literally taken back from the scene. I moved or was moved further from him. The back of his head was still above ground. I was close enough to see that he was murmuring, seemingly unaffected by his situation. There was no sound to determine any audible language or dialect. I struggled from my angle to see his lips move several more times. I was behind, but more to the right of him. Then another shift had occurred in location. I was even further from him on this second shift. At this point in the event, the robot-looking dog arrived. Was the blond man communicating with this robot?
More channels, orders of magnitude more neurons that we're recording from. With that, we think that people will be able to get naturalistic control over the computers, not just a mouse, but also a keyboard, game controllers, and potentially other devices. That's what we're trying to do. There are areas at the base of motor cortex that are responsible for driving activation of the speech articulators. There was a recent lovely study from UCSF that showed that from activity like that, you can actually decode speech. So you can decode the movement of the articulators, and from that, you can create synthetic speech. So potentially, with a device like this, you could restore speech to a paralyzed person who's no longer able to talk. But there's no reason in principle that we can't reach all of motor cortex. And that would give us access to any movement that a person thinks about, any movement at all. A person could imagine running or dancing or even kung fu, and we would be able to decode that signal. So that could give a paralyzed person the ability to control, say, for example, a 3D avatar that they could use for online gaming or sports. It could allow them to control a wide range of assistive robotic devices. And ultimately, if and when the technology for spinal cord, nerve, or muscle stimulation gets far enough, ultimately, it could be used to restore that individual's control of their own body.
Say Bluetooth? Did he call this machine? This machine was swift. The nimble legs of a machine maneuvered amazingly well, positioning behind the blond man. I can clearly recall a flap of some sort dropping like a lower jaw from the underside of this domed machine. The machine initiated some function and effort of pulling on the man. I have no recollection of this man's fate past this point. The anxiety of the moment was still fresh when I first recalled the observation on the morning of November 30th, 2018. It was only then, after waking up, that I began asking all these questions. Again, the whole observation went without any questioning. I grasped at questions that may have helped preserve the observation upon waking. I cannot say why I was unable to question any of it during the observation. The time was around, or very close to, 5:20 a.m. EST, 11:30:18. I want to say 5:17 a.m. EST. It would be around 5 or 6 hours later that the Alaskan earthquake would occur, around 7.2. And initially I wanted to call this the day one event, as opposed to, or with regards to maybe other events occurring. And it's been a very active season with weather and earthquakes and stuff that's been going on in Yellowstone since.
All right, at the end of the production, I started to get the feeling of a Men in Black moment where they popped in a VHS tape and it was a poor production, grade D flick of a movie that was supposedly having applicable story narrative. So with that said, none of this should be taken seriously. It's just a dream. A lot of interesting connections, and this is going to be the beginning of the new channel. I'm going to push this stuff off. I'll make mention of it anytime I generate any new videos, so if anybody's interested in this channel, seeing any new stuff on these dreams or any new dreams, you can go ahead and visit that channel. I'll make sure to mention them in any new videos. So thanks for watching, and this is for your entertainment only.
Back in the mid-1950s, the government started a little underfunded agency with the simple and laughable purpose of establishing contact with the race not on its planet.
You look directly at the end of this device. We'll administer the eye test.
Everybody thought the agency was a joke, except the aliens who made contact. This way. They were a group of intergalactic refugees, wanted to use the Earth as an apolitical zone for creatures without a planet. We agreed, and we concealed all the evidence of their landing.
So these are real flying saucers, and the World's Fair was just a cover-up for their landing.
Why else would we hold it in Queens? More non-humans arrive every year, and they live among us in secret.
Look, I'm sorry, not to change the subject or anything, but when was the last time you had a CAT scan?
About 6 months ago. It's company policy.
Right, you should make another appointment. Look, tell your boy Zed I had an absolutely wonderful time, and thank you for everything, but why don't you show me the door?
All right. I want to get some coffee. You want some coffee?
No, thank you, I'm fine.